All right. We got to end the year on a high note here. I'm sure this will be the last episode I put out there. And it's funny. We just started chatting here. If you're on YouTube, you're ready to see who's here. If you're listening to this, I got CBlez in the house. My man, the guy who makes the 60-second news week what it is. And some people are probably surprised. They'll be like, "Oh man, CBlez is coming on. This dude, all he does is put silly pictures of you up in the news. Or why is he chatting with them?" It's funny. We were talking for like 2 minutes, talking about fantasy sports, talking about sports betting, you name it. And I'm like, I may ask you some questions. CBlez is like, I may ask you some questions. I'm like, you know what? Let's just hit record. Let's hit record, and forget about it. The behind the scenes becomes the in front of the scenes, and let everybody kind of get the benefit of no prep, no nothing, two morons just talking about cards, hobby, and whatever else comes to mind. So there's my 1 minute intro. Without further ado, welcome CBlez to end the year off. I'm excited.
I'm happy to be here, and people might think that I don't like you or something because of the memes, but it's all fun. And I think
Yes.
people need to take the internet a little bit more that direction. Everybody thinks everything's so serious. You got to like take a chill pill, relax, think behind what's going on. Don't just always, you know what I mean? Like if someone
Yeah.
says something, you can't just take it at face value because they put it on the internet. People do make jokes just like in real life, so you kind of have to look at it that way. And I
Correct.
obviously I've known you for like I think 2 years at this point, year and a half. I love what you do in the hobby. I love that you've been in it for a long time. We're both from Long Island, New York.
Yep.
We're similar type people, and just
Both
anyone who has
shops
a
at the
deep.
same guy you went to many years ago. I went and picked up some stuff for Christmas. Izzy says hello.
How's he doing?
He's doing good, man. He's doing good. I mean, I don't see it ever as busy there as the week before Christmas. So it's just nuts. People buying everything. So it's kind of cool.
You probably have a lot of like followers locally, right? Like in the New
Yeah.
York area.
Yep. Got a lot of people out here. A lot of people, in Long Island. A lot of people in New York. But followers. I'm like you. You have a million followers, but followers are from all over the place. That's the cool thing about about IG. And it's funny. That'll be like one fun question. Your IG, man. You are. It's. I'm gonna use the word eccentric, right? Do you is it planned out? Do you just wake up and say, you know what, I'm going to do what I'm going to do today? And, people might like it, people might hate it, but I don't care. I'm just going to be me. Because it could be an interview about sports cards. It could be sports betting. It could be dancing. It could be, I mean, who the hell, do you wake up and say, all right, this is what I'm going to do today? Or it's just, this is me?
I mean, it's kind of just like my life, just like what I do. I don't really plan like in my life either. It's more just like go with it, whatever's like right at the moment. And I don't know, I just feel like with social media, especially if you plan it, like people can tell and they don't like that. Like they don't when you script something, that's maybe like 3 4 years ago. That was more like in like where you could script it and like write it out. But honestly, I never really did that because I've been in cards for like 20 years. I'm 28. I have two older brothers. We have a breaking company together, Blez, and we've always just been collectors. So it's I think for a lot of people it's kind of like a struggle to make content because they're like newer to the industry and they don't have ideas and they're looking at other people's stuff to kind of get their ideas. But for me, it's more just like all this stuff is just in my head. Like I don't really have to like look at anyone else or like if I think of a hobby topic, it's something that's probably relevant within the world of what's going on in the modern day industry
Yep.
because I'm just always thinking about cards and I'm always thinking about sports and just it's more just like what I think. I just want to have a conversation with people and I put it on the internet. And sometimes I'm opinionated, but I think it's good. I think people should be able to put their opinion on the internet and not be scared what people are going to think because how can we move forward? How can we have serious conversations if it's just always
Yeah.
reciting facts or just saying
I'm gonna throw
something?
something out there, right? And you tell me if I'm hitting the nail on the head. Tell me, what your thoughts are on it. Because it's a conversation you and I had, I think at Mint, And one of the questions I had, right, is you have a lot of followers. You have a lot of people who follow your content, a lot of people who followers is the right word, right? You are a hobby influencer. There's no doubt about it, for good, bad, or for ugly. And I think what you just said is an interesting thing, right? That they'll know on the internet if your content is sort of scripted. You can't really do that. You kind of just have to be out there. I think part of the hobby content, what makes it scripted, why people seem so scripted or have a difficult time with it, is this sort of, I guess agenda is the word. People are out there making content with an eye towards X, right? I'm going to make this because if I do this auction recap, then the auction company is going to see me. They're going to reach out to me and they're going to offer me money to do X, Y, and Z and do further auction recaps for their company. And I can make some sponsorship money that way. Or, hey, I can do some content about, breaking, and maybe I'll do breaks, and maybe Fanatics will reach out. So I think that's part of what it is. I remember talking to you about it once and asking you, like, all right, so what's the end game with the content? You have a huge following. What are you doing it for? Like, are you trying to make money on it? And you kind of like looked at me like sideways and were like, I'm not trying to make money on my content. I'm just trying to put out there what my thoughts are about the hobby. And I kind of grappled with it because of, look, I love having conversations with folks like you also and just throwing out fun content as well. Right. But obviously, if we're being honest, when Andrew and I started Lucas Tigers and Prawns, he was like, we're going to make $1 billion doing this. We're going to sell to Barstool Sports and we're going to blah, blah, blah. There was always that. You never had that. You never had like, hey, I'm just going to make this crazy account. I'm going to go on there and, I'm going to be the next Joe Rogan. That wasn't it. It's just, hey, I just want people to see who I am.
No, I think this is something that clicked in my head too, like a month ago when I was just home about the conversation that we had. And yeah, I think a lot of people make like a social media account and they're like, oh, I want to sell this. So I'm going to make a social media account and then I'm going to like market my product or me or whatever. And maybe down the road I can make money from it. That wasn't how I like started. For me, it was just like engage with the community that I deeply love because when you think about it, it's like you go to your card store back in the day. Now it's a lot of it's on the internet more because breaking's bigger. It's just more internet as opposed to what it used to be, where you go to your hobby shop. You have like the five guys you always see at your hobby shop,
Yep.
like every Wednesday, new product. And it's like I just wanted to kind of create that atmosphere on the internet, and it was never a money thing. And I guess you could say like, oh, I have a business in the space. I have Blez. So that kind of like if that's doing well, I don't necessarily need to make money from the content.
Yep.
Where I think a lot of people, if you're solely content based, you kind of have to make money from it, I guess. But
Yeah.
for me, it wasn't, I don't know, like 2018, 2019 was just like such a magical moment in this industry. And I don't think a lot of us knew what we were doing in terms of content at the time. Like most people, I don't know, I think you guys came in more in 2020, you saw what
Yep.
people are doing, and then you're like, oh, podcast space wasn't really
Yeah,
booming.
there weren't too
Let's
many
try
from
to
the
go.
hobby perspective. Yeah, honestly, in 2020, when 2020 started, I didn't even know what a podcast was. I've told this story a couple of times. I was in a sports card group, and COVID kind of happened, and I was telling stories. I was telling hobby stories. Stories about when I was a kid, and I told one story about how I could smell the hits in the packs, not search them. I could do that too, but there was one. It was like 1990. 94 or 95 playoff absolute that had a hog heaven card in it, where the front of the card is this cool like blue, it looks like the sky, and Isaac Bruce is in it, Marshall Falk, and Jerry Rice, Emmitt Smith, and the blue had a cutout of a football, and on the back the whole card was leather. It's called like a hog heaven pigskin preview. It was like leather, but because it was so much, you could smell the leather, and there were one in every other box. So I could tell when they ripped the plastic off of a box whether there was one in that box or not, right? Because either it smelled or didn't. And then by the pack, I was telling the story. People were like, you got crazy stories. You should do a podcast. And I'm like, well, if somebody tells me what the hell a podcast is, I'll do one. And that's kind of, Andrew reached out to me the next day and he's like, let's do it. We did a bunch of episodes. But your point is
But
right.
Let me say
18,
one more
19.
thing
Yeah,
though.
go ahead, please.
I'm also like, I'm a firm believer in like you chase passion and what you love first, and then money comes later. I think if you like look at the money up front and you're like, oh, I want to make a lot of money, let's do this. I think it's most likely going to fail. But I think that like if you go into, because it's proven like with us, like with
Mhm.
me and my family, it's like we were hobbyists for 20 years. The hobby gets big around us. People recognize that we're OGs and we've been around. And then it's like now you form something. But if you go in and you're like, oh, like I want to just make money, I'm going to create this content that's going to get people going and do all this and make money from that. It's like if you take that approach, you might do well, but I think it's short-lived. I don't think you can have a long-term I don't think long term it's going to end up working out.
I think you're right. I think, if you follow passion, the money will follow. I have a question for you, because maybe it's sort of an outsider looking in, right? And then you ask me questions too, dude. I'll have some fun. We're back and forth, rapid fire. Here's my one for you, because I think it's probably some people would want to know, right? Because I think it applies to a lot of people, and I don't know if it applies to you, and that's what I'm going to ask. I think part of what made the hobby frenzy you talked about in 1819 was people were trying to capture performance with the cards. And you were able to do it back then, right? You were able to buy, whether it was like a star stock kind of, mentality, or, just buy and flip, or, hey, I'm going to buy a bunch of Tatis cards. And when he starts off hot, I'm going to sell them all 2 weeks later, right? There was the ability to do that based on field performance. But a lot of it was propped up by the fact that the hobby was kind of exploding and more people were coming in. And obviously the prices went up. I don't think there is the ability to do that anymore. And even the ability to do it back then was kind of, like I said, bolstered or propped up by this, crazy hobby boom. We've seen a lot of people in the space kind of come in to chase that, to chase sort of almost like a day trading, right? It's not just flipping, right? Because, there's still people flipping cards, less, but still people flipping cards. But the ability to do it based on, hey, I think this guy is going to have a great season, Sengun or whoever you want to, whoever you want, whichever one of your guys, right? Or
It's
Wagner or whoever it is.
frustrating.
I'm going to buy now. And then I'm gonna, a month later be able to sell it because he starts off hot, right? With that kind of not as easy to do, is the sports betting sort of like the natural progression? Is that what, is it fair to say that kind of that was what really drew you in? That was like the cool part of the hobby 1819, to see, hey, I could buy this. And then when Luca takes off, I could buy, and you're not able to do that anymore. So you're kind of searching for that rush or ability to play performance somewhere else. Or am I completely misreading it?
Well, I'll speak for me and then I'll speak like in general what I think.
Yep.
So first off, for me, it's not that. I've been betting for a long time. I like action. I love cards. Basically, like my life is just like sports, cards. Like I don't really know. I don't watch like movies or like other stuff, TV shows. It's just like in this world.
Hmm.
So I think for me, it's not like, oh, go to betting because it's more like cards in 2018, 2019. It's not like that at all. Like I've always been in cards. I always will be. It's just you got to be in it differently.
Hmm.
You got to adjust. You got to pivot. You got to see what's working and do that. But speaking to what you said in general, I think there's two ways that cards go up and down. You got to look at the market overall, and then you have to look at the player performance. And I think that in 2018 and 2019, player performance, it didn't really matter that much. It might add in an extra 20, 50% when you're selling your card, but if you just had pretty much any card in a PSA 10 or a PSA 9, it was going to be worth more in the future than it was when you got it, pretty
Yep.
much for like a year or two, or maybe even three.
Yep.
So now it's not like that. Now, if you buy a card, it's not just going to go up in a month or two because the market's going up. So now
Hmm.
you have to go more based on player performance. And I
Yep.
think that maybe in 2022 and in 2023, even if a player crushed, it was kind of like the market trajectory might have been too much down that even if they played really well, if they stayed even, that's kind of like beating the market. You always have to look at it, are you beating the market if you're buying a player to invest in? So if everybody else is going down like 15, 20%, and your guy's staying even because he's playing well, that's actually, it might not be good like outside of cards, but to me, I think in terms of cards, so it's like actually a good thing if you're
Hmm.
holding a player that's even when everyone else is slightly going down. So I think this is like more long-winded, but I
No,
think that
we expect nothing less. Go for it.
so now I think that like because the market is where it's trending more towards where you can buy a player and if they play well, you can make money again. But I think it's even more evident in the players that are cheaper.
Hmm.
So if you take like a late first rounder in basketball or like a third or fourth rounder in football, their entry price to buy their cards is cheap. So if they start crushing, it's easier to make your 2 3x like it's 2018 2019
Like
than
a Cam
maybe a
Thomas
guy.
last year, right? If you were a Cam Thomas guy
Exactly.
when he got drafted, and then all of a sudden he was doing what he was doing, boom, that was definitely a win that was there for you if you were a Cam Thomas, supporter, believer, right?
Cam Thomas, Kobe White, Mikal Bridges, just like guys not in the top, not the
Hmm.
limelight guys, the guys who are like the second and third level. I think if you buy them and they go off, they're going to go up in the current market. But the top guys, the way I look at it, it's like your Jordans, your LeBrons, your Brady's, those guys who are retired and like LeBron's at the end, you're pretty much like betting with the market. And overall, in the last like 100 years or whatever, cards kind of go up similar to the stock market, similar to real estate. You're going to get your 5 to 7% per year if you're holding the goats of cards. And when the market went up like a lot, you get the volatile young rookies to go up like 30x, and you get the Jordan, LeBron, Brady's to go up like 10x, but they continue to go up in 2022 and 2023 while the young players fall a little bit because people realize it's more speculative. Let's put our money in the goats.
See, I mean, right now I would be very nervous holding LeBron cards. I know we talk about like, hey, they didn't go up as much, and they're gonna not if I have a 20-year window. I think you're okay there, but I think what I've seen, and you can tell me what your thoughts are on this, is that when somebody retires, their cards kind of take a bath because it used to not be like that. I remember being a kid and it was like, I'm going to buy all these Cal Ripken cards. And when he retires and makes the Hall of Fame, they're going to go up. Like that was what people actually thought, and it doesn't really play out that way. And Brady's cards, not only did they fly because of the boom, but they got an extra, boom because, here he was at the end of his career winning another Super Bowl when he went over to Tampa, right? And I think a lot of the LeBron stuff right now, if you're a LeBron collector, I could be dead wrong about this, but it's just my take on it. If you're a LeBron collector, you should be looking at what's happened to the Brady stuff. Because now that he's not playing, there is no eighth ring that can be won, right? If he comes back, maybe that's a different story, right? I mean, let's go Raiders, go out and get him. But he's done. And there's no longer that potential upside baked in. Even LeBron right now, I mean, the team's not doing so well, but look, he won the in-season tournament. Who knows what happens at the end of the, there is still that potential that, hey, he wins another one and, or he does something, amazing this year, deep playoff run, that there's something that could potentially, cause his cards to go up instead of just to bleed down. I think when he retires, and then with LeBron, you have Bronny coming in, like there's still these things, but when he's done, I would look to what's happened to Brady's and it's just my thought on LeBron. People get forgotten, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because we're at such a crossroads in like the world where it's like social media and the internet is so big now. And it's not even, I think when you compare it to even 4 or 5 years ago, it's like so much bigger. So, like, I think guys like Brady and LeBron actually have a chance to be popular and relevant because they have so many people who follow them now on the internet and they don't like, they're just gonna, if they play it right, they could stay just as big for like depending on what route they want to go. So I think this is something I want to discuss with you, but I think a lot of off the court stuff is becoming like equally important, if not more important, in terms of
Yeah.
your card prices. Because if you look at guys who do stuff off the field that might be good or bad, but if they're in the news and people are talking about them, their card prices seem to rise. So what do you think about the fact that, like, I think in the future we're more headed towards what you're doing off the field potentially than on the field?
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's an interesting thing. I think in the moment, while it's still fresh, it matters. And I'll give some examples, right? And also depends on negative, positive, and what we're talking about. Somebody like Wander Franco, Giddy, I don't think they ever recover. Like, if you have that kind of an off the field, even if it's, I'm not saying there's evidence, I'm not saying it's conviction. I'm saying once that is out there, once that's there, that's always attached to you. But keep in mind, we'd have to go through the facts of this, but Kobe is beloved now. The Kobe collectors are like second to none. People with the Mamba mentality. Go back and look at some of the off-field stuff, the off-court stuff that Kobe was involved in as well, and it's almost forgotten now. So, I mean, I'm not saying Wander Franco ever even sets foot on a baseball field again, but if he does and winds up hitting 900 home runs and has Franco mentality or whatever we're going to be calling it, and he becomes the greatest to ever do it. 20 years from now, 30 years from now, that off-field stuff might be forgotten. But barring that type of Kobe scenario, the negative is, it's pretty bad for card values. The positive, I think, is what you're talking about. And it's interesting because soccer is the first way I'll take this. And we'll go back. There's nobody who has, a bigger internet following than like Ronaldo, right? Messi, these guys. And it almost doesn't seem to matter. You know what I mean? And maybe that's because soccer cards are soccer cards. And I famously have gone on there and said, I'm not buying soccer cards because it's forced. It was never really something that was collected over time. And you name it, the whole deal. I've since changed my mind a little bit about the right soccer cards and the right people. But I don't know that, an internet following or an Instagram following or social media following really does much as far as your collectability, right? I've heard that for, fringe. I've heard it for like, people go out and say, hey, Justin Bieber, get his cards because this is a guy who's got more followers than anybody knows. And you're not going to be able to get his autograph. He's never going to sign. And, but he's got all these followers. Beyonce, get Beyonce cards. I think a social media following and relevance, that's all well and good. I just don't know whether or not that translates to value in their, collectibles or, in the hobby in and of itself. Your traditional guys, Brady is the example you used. I'm scared about Brady. Honestly, I'd be very scared because one of the cool things people didn't realize about Brady is he didn't really sign that much on like real big stuff. Like I always thought, a nice on-card, flawless auto of Brady would be a nice thing. You know what I mean? Because that's a cool card. It's from when he was playing, and there's not a ton of these high-end stuff. But now look, he's Fanatics. And we'll get into Fanatics in a second. I don't know what you may or may not answer, but we'll get there. But I mean, look what they did. The first chance they got after he retires, he's in a baseball product. Does that mean to me? I know there's only 81 autographs. I get it, but does that mean to me that when they take football back, Topps does football shortly, is Brady going to have autographs in that also? Are they going to get inundated? And then even if he's more popular, even if he's got this huge following, and even if he's doing used car commercials, pretending he played baseball for Montreal, isn't that going to increase the supply that's out there? And I know there's a difference between playing days and non-playing days. And, he would be one of the few guys that have Topps while he's playing, Panini while he's playing, and then back to Topps, not while he's playing anymore. That would be a little nuts unless he comes back. But it's an interesting thing to think about. Honestly, I think it all comes down to supply and demand, like everything else. So I think you're going to get an increase in supply on somebody like Brady, and that's a little scary.
I mean,
by the way, that's my son making a lot of noise over the background.
How was basketball?
How was basketball? Did you have fun?
Yeah.
Man, he tired me out today. He tired me out. Yes, he also threw a basketball at my leg. He gets mad when I'm playing
Like
real defense on him.
Santiago.
Like check, like this check, and he's like, boom, and he threw the ball right at my leg. It's just like it sounds just like Santiago. Exactly. me and my son, exactly.
That's funny.
He wants to play in Culture Collision. He said he wants to.
He wants to play.
He wants to play.
Come to the game.
We'll bring you down. I'll bring you down, buddy.
Where is it again?
It's in Atlanta,
Okay.
and we'll stop by Jeff Wilson's store.
Yeah.
No,
Sure.
we won't. Okay, so
I mean, you threw a lot at me. I
yeah,
think I think it's kind of impossible to figure out what's going to happen. But I agree with you. I do think the supply on certain people, like the goats, it probably will. I mean, it can only go up, honestly. So, but I do think, like, you look at it now, and it's like certain people like the modern, new,
yep.
flashy stuff, and then certain people like the '90s. So it's like it's gonna just be that people are going to like the new stuff, people are going to like the old stuff, but I think the collectors who have been here for a long time like certain things, and whatever they like I think is the most important, because those are the people who have lasted the test of time, who have been in the
Yep.
industry for 20, 30 years, and they kind of set the trends, and the sets that they're collecting is the stuff that down the road is going to hold the most value. And I
So you
think that
wear a couple of hats, right? I love it. I'm all about the hats. This is a Black Jade Wolf hat. If Blez has hats, send me one. I'll wear it on a show. But you wear hats in the hobby. One, you're, I mean, a 20-year hobby veteran. But two, involved in a breaking company. I mean, Blez is huge. There are certain products. People, I tell people this all the time. People don't get it. There are certain products that nobody breaks more than Blez. Nobody. The
a
Blez
lot of
breaking
products, a lot.
most of the baseball stuff that Topps puts out, there's nobody that breaks even close to what you guys do from a volume perspective. People don't realize that. Huge. Everyone's like, oh, backyard's huge. The amount of weight that you guys move, to use a fun little Scarface reference, people would be surprised. So I'm going to ask you this, and I'll let you answer it two ways if you want, right? Because you're going to wear a hat of someone who's involved in a family breaking company, but then also somebody who's here as a 20-year hobby veteran. And I'm sure the answer is probably going to be different. Fanatics. Just, you don't have to go too deep. Just, it's almost like word association. What's the first thing that comes to your mind when I say it? Good, bad, indifferent, as a breaker, right? As somebody who's breaking, as somebody who's part of a breaking company, what do you think about Fanatics coming in? Some of the things they've done, some of the things that they may do. What's a suggestion you might have for them? Something you think they're doing well, something you might suggest them do. And then also, I'm curious if the answer is different as somebody who's been in the hobby for 20 years, what your thoughts are of, what Fanatics is doing now, and maybe some suggestions for what they might be able to do in the future.
Well, the first thing I'll say is I like when companies try new things and do experiments, because when you try, you can learn what's working, what's failing, cut out the stuff that's failing, stick with the stuff that's working, and then you got a bunch of new changes that people like.
And by the way,
So
before he goes too far off track, I will also give Fanatics credit for that, right? And we're saying you try something new, and you can move on with the stuff that works and stuff that doesn't. So you guys break a lot of Ginter, right? You do. I mean, you break
yeah,
probably more than anybody, right? I love Ginter. It's a crazy oddball product. But when people break Ginter, what do they break it for? Everybody's searching for the rip cards. They want to get in there and they want to get the cards they can rip. Rip it, keep it. It's going to have stained glass. It's going to have wood minis. What's going to be in there? Who the heck knows? Blah, blah, blah. So I just got this today. You might not even know about this. It's called, I don't know if you can see it, Topps Rip Baseball, a new product
no,
that's coming out. The
I
box
don't
just has
know.
4 rip cards. The whole product is
Wow.
just cards. You rip them, keep them, you
How
name
many
it. The whole deal.
packs?
I think it's just 4 total cards in a box. So you get this little box with 4 cards that you rip. So it's
Wow.
it's funny you didn't even know about that, but what you're saying, look, people love that, and I think the price point was, it's like $100, $120 probably retail or something like that. And you get to open it up. It'd probably be fun for breakers. Not a lot of fluff, It's like, okay, do you want to rip it? Do you want to keep it? Hey, this one's Julio. Do you want to keep it? It's a rookie. You want to rip it? It should be fun. It's like a double rip, but it's trying something different.
And I think a lot of people like. I mean, let me check. Blez is probably they're probably breaking that, right?
Solicitation just came out about an hour ago, so they might not
Oh,
be.
it just came out today.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're probably gonna do it. I'm not sure though, but
I'm
I,
sure
I
you
think
will.
that I think you got to try, and I think that a lot of people in this hobby, they think, oh, it's got to be the way it used to be, or they have a certain image in their head that they want the hobby to be like that image, and I'm kind of like that too, where it's like, what brings you the most happiness to be involved with the hobby, and you kind of want that, but you also have to be accepting of the fact that the manufacturers are changing. Like Fanatics is coming in, and you have to be aware of the fact that they're going to try a lot of things. You might not like all of them, but you have to go in with an open mind, and you have to come in giving them a chance. You can't just say, "Oh, this is new, therefore it's bad." I think that's not fair. And I think like the MVP buyback program, that's one of my favorite things that they've done because it's something you can run consistently every year. It's not like if I like when things go with the sport. So the
Yep.
fact that you have cards and your Topps Chrome comes out usually 2, 3 months before the season's going to end. So you can buy players that you think are going to win the MVP. It just
Yep.
so happened that this year it was like pretty obvious who was going
Known.
to win
Yeah.
it. That it was obvious, but like a
Yep.
lot of the times it's going to be a two-horse race, and you might go on eBay and try to buy the cards for like $8 to $10, and you're trying to flip them at your store for
Listen,
20,
when
stuff
Chrome
like
came out, I was putting aside the Mookie Betts stuff. I mean, Acuna was great,
exactly.
but I was putting my Mookie Betts stuff aside. You didn't know exactly. I was still holding some of those.
And
So
that's
I'm
the
with you.
thing. It's everything that Fanatics does or Panini, everything that they do, or even Upper Deck, it has a domino effect where it's like it opens up new lanes and new opportunities. They do the MVP buyback, you're buying Mookie Betts cards. It's like
Yep.
people are always moving and shaking in the industry when new things happen, and you kind of have to figure it out. That's the thing that I like. It's like this hobby is changing and evolving every single day. So it's like you have to kind of keep up with the game and know what you're doing. You can't just this industry is very time dependent. You have to be in it. You have to be putting in time to know what's going on. And if you're not, you're going to get you're not going to know what the current market is or what's going on. So I
So I think
like the fact
one of the pushbacks I hear about Fanatics from breakers from LCS. I mean, first of all, by the way, my LCS opted out of the MVP buyback this year. I've always just walked in, handed him a couple $100 worth of cards, and he would give me a couple boxes, and that was great for the year. I'm about to find out what to do with my stuff. Hopefully, it doesn't expire. Does it expire soon? I don't know. Hope not.
I think like
Um,
March, but why did they
okay,
opt out?
I don't know. I mean, probably didn't want to lay out the cash, probably didn't want to lay out the stuff. I didn't even want to ask him, but he's not. My LCS is not the most favorable on Fanatics, and most LCSs aren't. And here's my why I was asking from a breaker perspective too, right? It was the Panini model, rip and wax, my friend. I've now mentioned him two episodes in a row. He's a little bit of a lunatic. He goes out there and he puts like the suggested retail sales sheet for Panini out there, right? And so it's like, here you go, look at my video. This is what Panini's telling you to sell it for, which means your LCS is getting it for cheaper than this. Your breakers are getting it right around this price, and then they're charging
That's
you X. Go ahead.
that's not how it works though. It's like the Panini also puts product on their site at the market value.
Yep.
You might get a few cases at a decent rate, but most of what you're getting that's the thing with this industry. It's like if you're moving volume, it's completely different than if you're moving a little bit, and everyone has a different situation. So then they look at Panini and Fanatics and they're like, oh, based on my situation, I don't like them because they're doing this. When it's like, I look at things from a whole hobby perspective when you want the whole thing to grow. Because if the pie grows and you take a little bit more piece of the pie, you don't need you don't want to take from others. You want the hobby to grow and you take a little
Yep.
bit more and then everyone grows with it. So
So I
when
guess
you
the concern, right, is Fanatics. I think the thought is that they're going to be charging as close to market price for everything as they can. Which, if you're a middleman in the hobby, whether it be an LCS, a distributor, a breaker, where your money is made on being able to get product cheaper than what someone is willing to pay for it on the open market and break it for them, and your money is made in that margin. It's made in that sort of buying wholesale, selling retail type of atmosphere. The thought is that Fanatics is coming in and they're going to try to sell as much as they can direct to people at a sweet spot. And maybe there's still some margin there. Maybe there's still for the breakers who are, the favorite breakers or the Fanatics breakers, maybe there's still some margin there to be made. But the LCSs, which you started off by talking about how, you want to recreate the hobby on Instagram, sort of like the LCS Wednesday, opening day, you come in and see your friends and that kind of stuff. I think part of, the concern is some of the people from the LCS feel like they're going to get squeezed out.
I don't understand. Like, can you go more into depth on what they're
Sure.
saying?
Sure. So, I mean, the LCS makes money. I mean, they can get some direct product from Panini and they can get some direct product from Tops. And in years past, Tops would charge them X amount. And that X amount that they were being charged by Tops was less than by a margin that they would be able to get for people walking into their store, the retail price, right? So, what I'm being told by my LCS, by other LCSs, is that with Fanatics taking over, that margin is squeezed, that Tops is charging them more. Tops is they're being smart, right? They're being smart. They're figuring out what the actual customer is paying, and they're offering it directly to the customer on their site, just like you mentioned Panini's doing. But more importantly, they're actually charging more to the LCS because why let the LCS make so much money is what Fanatics would say if they were here, right? Why let there be so much of a markup? But I guess the argument there is the LCS is providing a service. They're your local spot to walk in and pick up supplies and have that hobby interaction that you were having. If we don't need that, does the LCS kind of get squeezed? You just buy your supplies online, and you buy your cards from Blowout, and you get your social interactions on social media, and this is just kind of the next wave. This is the way it's going to happen. What does that mean for an LCS? What does it mean for breakers, smaller breakers?
I mean, this might be the biggest topic in the whole industry right now.
Might be. It might be.
And I think,
It might
I
be.
mean,
And you're in an interesting spot, right? Because you've seen the way that it was, but you also understand for the hobby to move to where it's going, you've seen the progression, right? You see what's happening, right? You see that it's not going to an LCS anymore. It's going and building a community online, right? And Fanatics is not going anywhere. I mean, Fanatics is not going anywhere at all. So they're going to figure out what the right price point is. And if that means squeezing some people out, it means squeezing people out.
I mean, for me, like, I love the LCS. I love going into a shop just because that's what I grew up on. So I have a soft spot for that, but I also see the whole landscape and what's good. And I think that in 2021, 2022, 2023, I would say the amount of shops just kept going up and up and up, and probably we might have gone from 200 in the country to like 1,000. And I don't think we need all that 800 that came in.
This is why
So
we love having CBlez on, because he just hit on the exact right answer. And it's, guys, we were buying LeBron Topps Chrome PSA 10s when they were $1,000, and they went to 5, they went to 7, then they went to 40, and now they're back down to 5 or 6. If they were $1,000 and they're 5 now, be thankful. If you win it for 1,005, people don't talk about this with the LCSs, and you just hit the nail on the head. My guy's not.
Can I explain it more?
Yeah, shoot, please.
So basically, 2018, 2019, 2020, those 3 years, the infrastructure of the hobby as it was booming was whatever was there. And
That's
then
right.
people saw that you can make money, and people saw the opportunity in sports cards and all that this industry has to offer. They're like, I want to open up a shop. So pretty much every big market in the country, there's probably 3x the amount of shops today than there was 5 years ago.
Yep.
So, in my opinion, I think it's getting a little bit harder out there, as you're saying, for the LCSs to do as well as they were doing.
Yep.
And it's not all Fanatics and Panini like they think it is. A lot of it's due to the fact that there's a lot more competition in their area.
Right.
So that
Right.
makes it even tougher. And I think that, in my opinion, whatever amount of shops there were 5 years ago, I think we need around that amount, maybe a little bit less than that. I don't think we need all the shops, but I think maybe a little bit of consolidation could be good. Like I said earlier, I think a lot of people who own LCSs are just looking at their personal situation,
Yep.
and I don't think that's really fair to do. It's like, oh, maybe I was making 250K 2 years ago and now I can only make 100. And it's like, yeah, that's not the hobby's fault. That's not Panini's fault. That's not Fanatics'
Right.
fault.
That's
You
right.
got to pivot. You got to figure out something else where if you have an audience of people coming into your shop and people that are loyal to your shop, because that's the way this industry works, people buy on loyalty. You can come up with something and create good value for those people and sell it to them and make some margin. You don't have to do it the way that you've been making money just because it's been easy.
That's
figure
right.
out something, pivot, do something else that's provide value to the industry, and people will pay for it and they'll like it. It's
That's right.
just that simple.
Yep. I mean, listen, consolidation. I think it's funny. We used it as a word in the hobby for cards for a while, right? It was like, hey, consolidate your silvers and your PSA 10 base cards and consolidate that stuff and get the numbered stuff and get the golds. The consolidation in the hobby is a little different now. The consolidation is going to be, in the space. It got
And the
huge. I
businesses,
mean, you could go online, I mean, on Instagram, and anybody who had access to a blaster, a target, became a breaker. You got on
yeah,
IG, and it was like, hey,
I don't think that's good. I think the barrier to entry needs to be a little bit higher.
yep,
And I'm not just saying that because I'm a breaker. I'm saying that because you need to have people who are verified, who they're good. And
yep,
that's a lot of the thing about Whatnot. It's like they just threw anybody on there. It's like you can't do that, because
yep,
that's why do you think all these scams happen where people were like not getting their cards? And remember, there was a 2 3 month stretch Whatnot had a problem every week.
yep,
And to
yeah,
me, that's because you're not vetting the people who are selling on there.
yep.
And
That's
I
because
think
it was expanding.
yeah, a little
You're
bit of
right.
consolidation from the businesses would be a great thing, because people want to come into this industry and feel safe, like they're not going to get scammed. And the only
Yep,
way to do that is to vet the people who are selling the stuff, and the only way to do that is to have less of them, so you can keep it under wraps a lot better. When you have
it,
thousands of people selling stuff, it's very hard to vet them and make sure they're not going to scam people, because it comes down to the baseline level. When you have anyone breaking on any platform, if they scam someone, that person has a bad taste in their mouth and they're going to leave. So the fact that I'm someone who loves this industry. I want people to be verified sellers and verified businesses, so we know they're not going to scam their people. And whoever they serve in their area is going to enjoy the hobby. They're going to love it, and they're going to grow passion for it. And
I love it.
that's what I would like.
No, I mean, I think you're right. I mean, it's funny because I remember talking to my LCS and said, when the times were great, he would say, hey, I was here through 2013, 2014, 2015, 2012, and it was lean and I wasn't making any money. So I deserve this now. I deserve to be the one making all this money now. But now it's like, all right, well, I'm not doing as well as I was. Well, okay. That's sort of like somebody saying, hey, I bought the LeBron at 40 grand. I'm getting screwed now. I mean, and it's especially your LCS that was around long enough, like my guy, I tell him, look, it might not go back to 2018, 2019, 2020, or even 2021, but it's better now than it was. Right, even though you're getting squeezed, it's better than it was. I mean, so it really is just a matter of perspective, right? You can't. None of us really expect to be able, like you talked about in the beginning, buy a card now and it 10x in a month, the way that it was back then. But for some reason, the LCSs are all still hoping to be able to make all that money. Everybody's still expecting to be able to get the product that they could just buy right now and just flip it for 5 times the money the next day.
Look at Izzy. I don't even know what he's doing on a day-to-day basis, but I guarantee you, because he doesn't charge the maximum he can charge,
Yep.
everybody loves him. Everyone
Yep.
just comes in. His business, as long as he wants, is going to just be great, because he doesn't want to make the most amount. I mean, he does, but he'd rather do good for the hobby, and he's more of a good
Correct.
person. That I know that, right? Izzy's
Yeah.
that he gives the
100%.
best price. It's just
You
so
know what?
obvious.
It's somebody out there who I would say leaves some meat on the bone. Right? It's not somebody
Yes.
who's trying to squeeze every drop of juice out of the fruit, right? He realizes that he can make enough money. There are collectors out there, like Bro Namath is one that comes to mind, really right off the top of my head, who will sell me a card for less than the max. You want to ask a question? Go ahead, ask a
Sure.
question.
If you could change one thing about the hobby, what would you change?
There you go. CBlez. You
That's
could
a
change
tough
one thing.
one.
What would it be? It's a tough one. It's a tough question. What would you change?
How
How hard it is to get one-on-ones?
I'd
What's your
change.
favorite part of the hobby?
What's your favorite part of the hobby? You could say it. Oh, okay. Well, it's different. He would make all the boxes cheaper so he could just buy them with his allowance. But it is what it is. I mean, it's not the way that it works. But yeah, I mean, listen, we've opened some fun stuff recently. We opened up a Topps Chrome soccer case. The two of us,
Really?
so whole case.
Wow.
couple Messies here and there. You know, we don't really know too much MLS, but it was MLS. We had a couple Messies. That was the hunt was for a Messi. I don't really know
Is that
anybody
the
else.
first product? The first product he's in for the MLS?
Yeah, there was a Topps paper, and then Chrome just came out. I think yesterday, Chrome came out. The MLS Chrome. There are some really nice hits. I was giving Mama Breaks a hard time because she posted this, you know, this like Messi out of 5, and then a gold Messi and refractor Messi, and I'm like, what the hell is this? How many did you open? She's like, open 7 cases. I'm like, okay, at least you put that out there, because I opened 1 and I got gots. So, and people forget about that sometimes, right? It's, you know, it's easier to say, wow, look, that's a loaded case. No, that's 7 cases worth of it being open. You're going to hit some stuff in 7 cases. My 1 case, I might not hit anything, which we didn't.
Yeah, that's actually something that we should talk about. I feel like a lot of people, like, in content, like, they have, like, they're like, they're talking about like loaded boxes like for like a year now. It's
Yep.
like it's like, yeah, you made your case, you're wrong. Like, do
So you don't think
something
there's
new.
loaded boxes? You don't think no loaded boxes?
In my opinion, I don't think there is, but if there is or not, I think if there was, I think it would be a good thing. I think there should be.
Oh, okay. All right.
I actually
Let's
like
go.
it. Like, remember when they would do hot, like if it's a 10-pack box and you get like 3 autos or something, I would want like 1 box in a case to have like every pack's an auto,
By the
something
way, I
like
love
that.
that. We just opened a Heritage box yesterday, my son and I, and it was a hot box where every pack had a purple refractor in it. I think they're 1 per
Yes.
piece like that. And, you know, the first pack we opened had a Volpe purple refractor. And they're like, boom, there we go. Let's go. Hey now, doing a little dance, you know? So I do like that idea. As far as hot boxes and throwing, you know, some cool stuff in there for people, I think that's a good idea. Extra autos, you know, that kind of stuff. Great. I think the concern is this, and I'll lay it out, and then I'll kind of like tee it up here. We'll do a set, and you tell me why people think like this, and what your thoughts are. I think why people made that kind of content, right, is this is an unregulated space. There's nothing out there. There's nothing out there that, you know, would prevent a company from rigging it. You know, there's nothing out there from preventing Panini from putting a logo man, you know, the triple logo man in a box, X marking that box, putting painter's tape on, whatever it is, and sending it to Backyard Breaks. There's nothing stopping them from doing that at all. All right, because there's no regulation on it. There's no nothing, you name it. I'm not saying that happens, but when there's no regulation, they're skeptical, especially when the anecdotal evidence of these big breakers, the same breakers, continuing to hit big hit after big hit after big hit. It's tough to explain, oh, they just break a lot of it, right? So that's where it's coming from, right? It is, you know, and these folks, they want to be not a regulator, but they want to be the eyes and the ears of the common person, because the common person, the me and my son who are opening up a box or even a case, we're never hitting anything. Like we in the last 5 years of opening stuff, we've hit like 4 one-of-ones.
No, more.
And
we've graded 4, I think.
But I'm not talking about like sketch cards, buddy. I'm talking about like legit cards, and none of them are ones you would want. Like
Well,
Brian
I
Urlacher
mean,
was like the best one we got. You know, like we're not
I'm
hitting
a
them.
good person. I'm a really good person to talk about this, because from 2003 until 2018, all I did was like buy a couple boxes when a product came out and just open.
Yep.
And then I'm part of a breaking company that breaks top 3 most product in the world.
Yep.
So it's like, I didn't hit anything great either, like my whole life when I was opening. I hit 1 card. Me and my brother, we hit a Dwayne Wade logo man from 0405 Sweet Sigs, where
Nice.
the pack was like the thickest pack I've ever seen. Like, you know how it used to be where like 1 pack was like insanely fat,
Yeah,
and it's
yeah.
like that's obviously
You're
the
like, oh,
hit.
clearly that's got something in it. Yeah.
Because they didn't have like many fake outs, because hits were new back then.
Yep.
It's like autos and patches were new. So basically, my whole life I had 1 logo man pull, and I pulled maybe like a Cam Newton rookie auto. I pulled a Tim Lincecum patch card. I pulled maybe a few other nice cards, but like I opened a lot of product too, and it's like I didn't really pull anything. And then you go to Blez, where we probably open as much product in like a day as I did maybe in my 15 years of
Yep.
opening when I
You're
was
gonna see
younger.
big hits.
And you
And by the
just
way,
see the cards.
it's not just because you're right, and I think you're 100% right. I mean, listen, I also think that it's good that people are putting these questions out there because I think it will lead to some changes. I mean, there's already talk about Fanatics doing sort of an auditing, making sure that the cards are going in the right packs and you name it. And we've seen some of the problems they've had with the super fractors and you name it. So I think the content does serve a purpose. But what you're saying is right, and don't just take it from from Blez as part of a breaker. When I was doing UFC cards, 2011, Leaf came out with a release. It was Leaf Metal. It was their second release. It was great. It would have been a great thing for breakers if breakers were really, I mean, Platinum was doing it at the time. There weren't a lot of breakers. It was on like breakers.tv. I remember the whole, breaking industry. It was very different back then. But in 2011, this came out and it was a box and every card was already in a top loader and a penny sleeve. And it was all hits. It was all autos. It was 8 autos in a box and the last couple were the best ones. So you got like a base order, and then it was like a numbered out of 25, numbered out of 5, and if there was a 1 of 1, number 1, they limited the run to 150 cases, 150 12-box case. That was it. That was the whole run because UFC was nothing. People weren't doing MMA, right? But it was a really cool thing. And if you look at these, by the way, 2011 and Leaf Metal, you look at it and be like, wow, that's where Prism stole their design from. Hypothetically, I'm not, not accusing you, Penny, but it looks just like metal. It's a chromium card, 2011 Leaf Metal, really nice looking. I opened 38 of the 150 cases myself on opening day from Blowout. I had them ship me 18 cases myself. I went. My law firm was across the street. I had a cigar place. I had a little membership. I went down into the basement. I was smoking cigars. I was opening packs. I was opening boxes. You name it, just rip. And I hit about a third of the product hits. I hit the 1 of 1s. I hit a bunch of 1 of 1s. Rory McDonald was a big fighter at the time. I hit one of his 1 of 1s. And it's a volume game. If you're going to open, a quarter or more of the product, you're going to get a quarter or more of the hits. You might get the big card. You might get the National Pride 1 of 1s or whatever it may be, right? So I've seen that myself. So what CBlez is saying, I've seen it play out myself. If you open a big enough percentage, you're going to get some of the cards. It's just the way it is.
Yeah, I think most people just don't understand the volume that some breakers move through relative to like what they open in product themselves. It's just like it's just such a big difference. Like I think Blez for Bowman, Blez has probably done like 300-400 cases of
Yep.
Bowman draft, and it just came out. And it's like, yeah, if you go to your LCS and you get 2-3 boxes, Bowman's a product that's tough to hit to
Right.
begin with.
Chances are Blez is going to hit a Brady and you're not. I mean, that's the way it is. Yeah, I mean, just
and
it's
we
a
only
number.
hit like a couple Brady's, and it's like we probably hit less than we're supposed to because we open so much.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, you might go get 2-3 boxes and pull nothing great, but like mathematically, like that's kind of what's supposed to happen. When you open a lot, you're gonna pull.
CBlez, I'm going to have you back on. I have to take my daughter to a movie. So I'm going to leave you with one question. You take it as long as you like. It's my question for you is we're ending 2023 and we're heading into 2024, right? The
Mhm.
hobby's in a spot. What do you think about where the hobby is? And what do you think about what we're going to see in 2024? What are, a couple of things you like about where we are, something maybe you're hoping to see down the road. Just give kind of your take on, where we are and where we're going. Can you do that?
Yeah, I can. I think that I think we're like 2-3 steps ahead of where we were before all this craziness. And I think that a lot of work needs to be done to keep going up because if we let things slip, it's not just a guarantee that the industry is just going to keep doing well in the long term. I think the manufacturers combined with the retailers and stuff need to work hard, and they need to continue to grow this thing. I think if we take the foot off the gas, it's not going to be good. You never want to do that. And I think a lot of the times things have been going good for a lot of people. And when it gets easy, you get a little bit complacent
Yep.
naturally because we're all humans. And I think that that's not a good thing. I think as an industry, the businesses need to stay hungry to grow this thing, and they need and that's where I like what Fanatics is doing because they're throwing bullets, and they're trying a lot of new things that hasn't been done before. And I think that it might take it might take some time. Like people think Fanatics comes in, it's like boom, we're gonna be good. It doesn't work that way. When you build something great, it takes time and you gotta give chances. And I think in 2023, 2022, a lot of people, maybe LCS, as you're saying, are upset with what Fanatics is doing. But I think we need to wait and give more time because they are coming in new to having the manufacturing. And I think that a lot of it's like a test run. They're also going to have basketball and football, I think, in 2025. So they have a whole nother calendar year to try out a bunch of stuff, see
Yep.
what's working, and then maybe if it does work, we try it with basketball and football. So I think that it's very early on in the whole process for Fanatics to begin with. I think they're coming in for like at least 10 to 15 years guaranteed. So you can't just expect it to be amazing right now. And I think that's tough for because we're so engaged in the hobby. So it's like a week or a month, it feels like so long to us. But to Fanatics, it's not that long because they're looking they're looking at a 10 to 15 year window.
So
So
have
I
some
think
patience. Instant gratification
yes.
might not be there, but just, and also I guess the ask for folks is just kind of do your part, right? Always be innovative, always be, trying to, think of better ways of doing your own business, your own, spot in the hobby. I
One
like
more
that.
thing.
Yeah, shoot.
One more thing.
Yeah,
I
please.
think a lot of people, like the people who are still in the industry today, want to be in this industry for the right reasons. And I think that that's really important. A lot of people came in chasing money and chasing maybe clout. And it's like, if you're going to go that route, you're not going to be in this for the long haul because the market goes up and down, things change. You actually have to love this stuff. And I think that the more people that get exposed to sports cards and the hobby, the better. And I think people tend to fall in love with it. But I think if you're in it starting in 2024, you will be in it going forward. And I think we've kind of eliminated the people that don't actually love this stuff. And I think that's actually a good thing because we keep the hobby keeps building infrastructure to grow, and I think that's really important for people who are going to be in this thing and people who love it to stay, and those are the roots of the industry and those are the people that are going to help it grow. And I think that we're at the point now where it's pretty much only those people, and I think that's a really good thing.
And I had 4 or 5 questions, but I actually want to end it right there. I don't think I could think of a better way to end it. 'Cause I think you're 100% right. I'm serious. I think anybody who's here now is here for the right reasons, and it provides a very well supported base to grow from here. I think you hit the nail right on the head with that. I love it. I'm gonna have you back. Maybe we'll do like once a month. I'll have you come in. I'm not gonna let you end on that. Who's winning the Culture Collision basketball game?
I mean, what am I not going to say? Me?
And
Dude,
of course,
my team is insane. We're stacked in all directions, from from creators to basketball players to people who do other stuff. We have a roster full of multi-talented people, which that's what I was going for.
that's it. CBlez built the bubble Lakers. Can't take them out. Not in a short tournament like this. Done.
Eh,
Yeah, it's over. It's
I
over.
appreciate you having me on. This was a
Of
great,
course,
fun
man. This
discussion.
is this is a lot of fun. I'm gonna have you back on soon. People love you, and people are gonna get a hey, even Ian loves you. People are gonna get a kick out of this. Like these guys actually talk. It's pretty funny. Thanks, everybody.